Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to your news edition. These are the headlines. A few hours before the National Congress on the modernization of the agricultural sector in order to achieve self-sufficiency in this edition, we will make you discover the achievements made in several provinces. The appointment of Nordin Daoudi as the new CEO of Sonatrach Group as part of the renewed dynamic in the sector of hydrocarbons and mines. Historical commitments of Morocco before the international community for the right of the Sahrawi people to self-determination through a referendum unveil the violations of international legitimacy. The Moroccans keep protesting for their basic rights, such as social justice, and their demands are met with a brutal repression by the Makhzen. The political uncertainty worsens the crisis in France, and the extremist policy weakens the trust within the governmental institutions. Welcome back. A Congress will be held on Monday in Algiers within the framework of the new common vision to develop the national sustainable agricultural policy and modernize the sector, with the participation of economic operators, national and international institutions. This event is part of the commitment of the President of the Republic and his instructions on the necessity of modernizing agriculture to achieve self-sufficiency and food security. Across several Algerian provinces, major agricultural projects are transforming the sector and strengthening the country's food security, from new storage centers in El Mnia to large-scale fruit production in Msila and supplying farms with electricity in Souqaras. These initiatives are boosting the productivity, creating new jobs and helping build a stronger and more sustainable national economy. Rania Al-Bahri with the details.
El Mnia has seen big progress in farming thanks to new strategic projects that improve the storage of agricultural products, especially grains. New storage and collection centers were built, helping farmers keep their harvest close to home instead of traveling hundreds of kilometers. These centers encouraged higher production, supported local farmers, and created many new jobs. They are an important step in strengthening food security and boosting the local economy. In Msila province, a large farming project was launched on more than 3,000 hectares of land, with over 5 million fruit trees mainly used for food processing industries. All production comes from local fruit. Half is sold in Algeria and the other half is exported abroad. This helps the country reduce imports and supports national production. The project also created hundreds of direct and indirect jobs and includes a large water basin with a capacity of 1 million cubic meters to ensure irrigation and adapt to climate challenges. In Souqaras province, great progress was made by connecting 281 farms to agricultural electricity across more than 100 kilometers of network. This connection helped farmers improve production and reduce high fuel costs from old machines. The farms include fish ponds, poultry farms, livestock areas, and irrigated crops. Thanks to this achievement, Souqaras province has become a good example of how better infrastructure can support food security and help the national economy grow.
The Sonatrach Group welcomes its new CEO that was appointed by the State Minister of Hydrocarbons and Mines, Mohamed Arqab. Nordin Daoudi replaces the former CEO Rashid Hashishi. During his speech, Mohamed Arqab affirmed that this appointment is part of a new dynamic in the sector of hydrocarbons and mines, led by the strategic vision of the President of the Republic, aiming to promote the development of the national economy. We'll listen.
This appointment comes within a national context marked by renewed momentum in the hydrocarbons and mining sectors, reflecting the strategic vision of the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, aimed at strengthening sustainable development, diversifying the national economy, and consolidating Algeria's position as a reliable energy supplier at both regional and international levels. I feel a deep sense of emotion and great responsibility following my appointment as Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of the Sonatrach Group. This national economy flagship represents the heart of our country's energy industry and a key pillar in its development process. First and foremost, I wish to express my sincere gratitude and profound appreciation to the President of the Republic for the invaluable trust he has placed in me, an honor I regard as a true mark of distinction and a powerful source of motivation to redouble my efforts and dedication. I also extend my thanks to the Minister of Hydrocarbons and Mines for his continued support and guidance, which will be great help to us. I am fully aware of the honor this role represents, as well as of the high expectations and major responsibilities it entails, particularly in the light of the profound changes currently shaping the energy sector at both regional and global levels.
The State Minister of Hydrocarbons and Mines, Mohamed Arqab, received on Sunday in Algiers Philippe Mathieu, the Executive Vice President of the Norwegian energy group Equinor, who expressed the interest of the group to reinforce its presence and investments in Algeria to extend them to new sectors. The two parties held a partnership level between Sonatrach and the Norwegian group, notably through the projects of Insalah and Inamenas as successful models of technical cooperation and investment between the two countries. And from Hanoi, the General Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, National Community Abroad and African Affairs, Lounes Magraman, affirmed that Algeria's official signing of the United Nations Conventions Against Cybercrime is a reaffirmation of its commitment to multilateralism and international cooperation as an essential way to face the global challenges. We listen.
إن إقبال الجزائر على التوقيع بالأمس على هذه الاتفاقية.
Algeria is committed to working closely with other member states and with the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime in order to achieve the following three short and medium-term goals. Firstly, to ensure the entry into force of the United Nations Convention on Cybercrime as soon as possible. Secondly, to adopt a consensus text setting out the rules and procedures for the conference of the parties of this convention, scheduled for next January. And thirdly, to contribute to the negotiation process, which will resume at a later date, on an additional protocol covering other forms of crime that may be included in the scope of the convention.
Western Sahara remains trapped in a decades-long struggle for self-determination as international inaction leaves its decolonization unresolved and its people's rights ignored. Najah Tiyar with the details.
With angry chants echoing through the streets, the Moroccans are once again taken to the public squares in defiance. Another week of nationwide unrest grips the country as the Marsan faces mounting outrage from citizens demanding social justice, territorial equality and accountability. Across key sectors, strikes and sit-ins are spreading, a powerful response to the soaring cost of living, deepening precarity and the collapse of public services that have pushed a weary nation to the brink. From collapsing hospitals to disillusioned universities, the outcry against government neglect is growing louder. Citizens denounce a state that boasts of reform, while the reality on the ground tells a story of exhaustion, inequality and abandonment. The health sector stands at breaking point. Behind the government's claims of success and equal access to care lies a grim truth. Overwhelmed maternity wards, deserted emergency rooms, repeated assaults on staff and hospitals left to decay, with at times a single doctor serving hundreds of thousands. In higher education, professors voice the same fury, condemning suffocating bureaucracy, the marginalization of academics, and years of ignored grievances. Their frustration mirrors a generation's despair. Young Moroccans, battered by unemployment and forced exodus of graduates, accuse authorities of wasting the public wealth on prestige projects that serve few. Amid deepening inequality and the collapse of essential services, protests continue to spread. Across Morocco, a weary and disenchanted population rises, demanding dignity and justice, while the Makhzen struggles to contain a street that has found its voice.
Western Sahara remains trapped in decades-long struggle for self-determination as international inaction leaves decolonization unresolved and its people's right ignored. Najah Diyar with the details.
The Western Sahara still stands as Africa's last colony, a symbol of promises unkept and diplomacy without resolve for more than 50 years on. Despite decades of the UN oversight, the conflict remains told in empty statements. Since the 1991 ceasefire, the Sahrawi people have upheld their commitment to peace, trust in the United Nations, a pledge Morocco once shared. Today, once again before you, I reaffirm my commitment to accept, first, the organization of a referendum on self-determination in Western Sahara, and second, to respect the results of that referendum, whatever they may be. I am even pleased to take before you two commitments instead of one, the first being to respect the ceasefire which Morocco has decided unilaterally to apply as of this moment. And with the situation remaining unchanged, Western Sahara continues to wait its decolonization process stalled despite decades of the UN involvement. The Polisario Front cannot engage in any process whose ultimate goal is to deny its legitimate right and the reality of the Moroccan occupation. The Polisario Front remains open to negotiations and to a peaceful settlement without preconditions, as indicated in previous UN Security Council resolutions. Adding to that, a global conscience continues to defend the right to self-determination backed by international court rulings. And after decades of patience, the Sahrawi people reject false peace and demand a referendum that guarantees freedom and dignity.
France is in a bad position, according to the rating agency Moody's, that lowered its outlook from stable to negative. According to the agency, the public deficit, already above 6% of the GDP in 2024, could climb in 2025 if no recovery measures are taken. The public debt may reach 120% of the GDP in 2027. More details with Daniel Bahri.
France is facing growing financial troubles as its debt and deficit continue to rise. The situation has now drawn serious attention from international credit rating agencies. Moody's changed France's outlook from stable to negative, warning that the country's financial stability is at risk. Moody's explained that France's political divisions make it difficult to pass the structural reforms needed to control spending and reduce the deficit. The agency fears that without a strong and lasting political agreement, France will struggle to manage its budget and debt levels. The country's public deficit is already above 6% of GDP in 2024 and could reach 6.3% in 2025. At the same time, public debt, currently around 113% of GDP, could rise to 120% by 2027, according to the Financial Times, if no recovery plan is put in place. Moody's also warned that if France fails to take credible steps to fix its finances, it could face a dangerous cycle, rising debt costs, a growing deficit, and even greater pressure on the national budget. The agency said France must quickly rebuild market confidence while avoiding damage to economic growth, otherwise another downgrade could follow soon. The governor of the Bank of France echoed this concern, saying that the country risks progressive suffocation as interest payments on its massive debt continues to grow. This warning comes after both Fitch and S&P Global already downgraded France's credit rating in recent weeks.
Despite the ceasefire agreement that took effect on the 10th of October, the humanitarian situation is still shocking in Gaza, according to UNICEF, that recalled that 1 million children suffered daily horrors in the most dangerous place on earth. The international community keeps demanding the end of the blockade to facilitate the delivery of humanitarian aid because the Palestinian needs are increasing as winter is coming. The non-governmental organization Médecins Sans Frontières or Doctors Without Borders affirmed that the Zionist entity is violating the ceasefire agreement. And with this, we come to the end of our edition. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us. Have a good night.